simply because now for the last 50 days, they have no time except for dealing with cash. Taking old currency, issuing new currency. They don't have time to give out to loan. They may be getting a lot of money, but where is the time to actually dish out loan? My mother, she's 90 years old almost. She went to the bank. She wanted to do some, RTGS transfer. Fellow said, "Madam, I don't have time for this." She could not transfer her money. She said, "Okay, allow me internet banking." They said, "We don't have time for doing that. You come after the problem is over." So in other words, the bankers are so pressed for time. They're working overtime. They're so pressed for time, they don't have time to do all this. So in other words, the problem will be that the banking system, which has now got all this currency, which is supposed to deposit in the RBI, they are not able to lend it. And soon that money will be taken out by the people. So in other words, banking will be hit, their NPAs will increase, the private companies are getting hit because their profitability has dropped. Now, when profitability drops, what it means is that your investment plans get postponed. Because profitability is what determines, your demand and profitability determines whether there'll be further investment. If you don't have profitability, your future investment suffers. Once investment gets hit and unemployment gets hit, then this is what is called recessionary condition. So recessionary conditions begin to take hold, and that becomes more long-lasting. So how long could this last? That becomes the important question. Now, the currency shortage, suddenly 86% by value of currency has been withdrawn, okay? And you are slowly replacing it. Do you keep enough stock of paper and ink to immediately print 86% currency? Indeed not. What you're printing is an annual printing program. So you keep paper and you keep ink according to the annual printing program. You don't keep enough paper and ink to supply 16 years of currency within 1 year. So there's a huge shortage of paper and ink. Paper is now being tendered. So paper will come. Maybe some printing will be done abroad, but that will also take time because you'll have to tender for it. Ink was tendered only 3 weeks back. So shortage of paper and ink is there. So even if you work 3 shifts, you can work it for a short time, but as paper and ink shortage comes up, you'll not be able to continue printing at the same rate. Then there's a shortage of currency for the small denomination notes. So you have to print more of the small denomination note. If you print more of the small denomination currency note, then it'll take that much longer. Compared to 1,000 rupee note, if you print the 10 rupee note, it'll take many, many times more to print the entire 10 rupee stock of notes. So therefore, the shortage of currency will continue for not less than 7 to 8 months. Now, that is one. Second is, as has already been pointed out, there's a hoarding of currency going on because people are very uncertain about whether they'll be able to get currency. So initially what people have done is they've exchanged their old currency for the new currency and they're holding on to the currency because in future there may be further problems. If the RBI has made 61 changes within a space of 50 days, then many more changes can come. So in other words, hoarding of currency is going on, which has aggravated the shortage. So my own judgment is that you'll not only have to print the 15.44 lakh crores of notes that have been taken out of value, but you may have to print more than 15.44 lakh crores. In which case, the shortage could last as long as 8 to 12 months. Nothing less than 8 to 12 months before the situation is retrieved. Now, if the situation lasts for 8 to 12 months, then your investment will be definitely hit, your employment will be definitely hit, and the recessionary conditions will take hold. Now, a situation in which an economy was growing at 7%, and now what has happened is that the economy is suddenly growing at almost negative rates of growth. So from an economy which is supposed to be doing well, suddenly it is going in a problem. So this is the situation that we are confronted with, where the recessionary conditions, as they deepen, then the effect will become more and more long-lasting. So it's very essential for government to restore the amount of currency that used to be there, that is needed for the economy to circulate itself. Okay? If that restoration of that thing does not take place quickly enough, then slowly the recessionary conditions will take hold and the problem of the crisis of the economy will deepen further and further. So in other words, without solving the problem of the black economy, we have created a problem for the entire economy. And that is where our problem lies today. And that is what needs to be restored. And because the unorganized sector, by definition, is not organized, they are upset, but they won't be able to express that thing, okay? Because whenever some kind of disaffection is there in society, it requires organized forces to actually do that. If there are no organized forces organizing these affected people, then they will continue to feel bad, they'll continue to feel upset, but they are helpless. India has been characterized by large-scale poverty for so long, and people have tolerated that. My friends, I used to do physics before I switched to economics. So when my friends from physics days come to India, they say, how can you have such poverty? How can you have such uncivilized conditions of living, Like, for instance, the other day I was traveling to Gwalior for a conference, and there was a group of 20 Europeans sitting. And before every town, they'd say, look, plastic bags are lying there, so much dirt and filth is lying there, So to them, the living conditions are very unhygienic, very poor living conditions, but we have got used to it. We don't protest. We don't say that it has to be immediately solved. So in other words, our poor people, our unorganized sector is used to tolerating a lot. They are willing to take a lot. But as was said earlier, during the emergency, there was a silent change that took place. That silent change will take place as the living conditions deteriorate further, as the poverty goes further down, as the thing that is coming out in some of the newspapers in Delhi, like Times of India and so on, that many of the daily wage workers are having only one meal a day. Now, that cannot last beyond a certain thing. And if it is only 50 days, maybe people are willing to give time for 50 days. But as we can see, it is going to last much beyond 50 days. As 50 days are crossed, I think people are going to begin to ask questions. Already people are beginning to ask questions that why did you allow a second income declaration scheme? By 50% tax, you can whiten your money. If that is what you had to do, why didn't you just do that and not make us stand in the queue? You didn't require a demonetization to do that. So this question is already being asked politically, that if you had to do the second income declaration scheme at 50% tax, then why not just do that? Why do something else? Similarly, the question of a less cash economy or a cashless economy. If you wanted to do that, there are other ways of doing that. And as has been already pointed out by the previous speaker, you needed to prepare for it. You needed to have an internet connection. You needed to have connectivity. You had to stop the call drops that take place so often, etc., etc. So you have gone in without preparation. You went into demonetization without preparation, and because that wasn't working, you changed the goalpost, and therefore you're talking about a cashless economy, then you're talking about a less cash economy, now you're talking about raiding people and trying to catch them. Okay? So one after the other goalposts have changed. But each of these goalposts could have been achieved without the demonetization. Demonetization was primarily designed, according to the Prime Minister, to check the growth of the black economy. It hasn't done that, but it's creating other problems. So in other words, what to do at this point of time? That becomes a big question facing us. Because politically, it would be very damaging for the party in power to say, we have not succeeded, that we have failed. They will not ever do that. So therefore, we are stuck, because they are not going to reverse the thing. Otherwise, it would be very simple to reverse it, because the large denomination 1,500 rupee currency notes are still there in the banks. They've still not been destroyed. We could say that they can be legal tender again, okay? But that is something which would be politically so damaging that it would not be done. So we have a solution, but that solution will not be accepted by the political party in power, okay? So therefore, we are stuck. We are stuck with an economy which is beginning to collapse at this point of time, and which will mean that everybody in this economy will suffer. So from a fast-growing 7% rate of growth, according to the government, we're suddenly into negative rate of growth, and therefore foreign investment will also suffer. What the Prime Minister was talking about, trying to get foreign investment into the country, trying to make in India, all the programs that the government is talking about, all of them are going to suffer as a result of this. Now the question is, can there be a dividend in the future? This is what the government is saying, that we'll have a dividend in the future. Yes, if you'd manage to tackle the black economy at 62% of GDP means that you could have got an additional 24% of tax GDP ratio. Your tax GDP ratio, which is one of the lowest in the world at 16%, would have become 40%. The shortage of funds for education, shortage of funds for health, shortage of funds for roads, for ports, that would have been over. So yes, indeed, we should tackle the black economy. There's absolutely no doubt. But this is not the way to do it. This is not the way you'll be able to do it. There are other ways in which you could do it, and those are the ways that needed to be investigated, that need to be put on the anvil. Now, the question is, will this step get us more tax resources? Indeed not, because if the economy begins to decline, then you're going to lose tax resources rather than gain tax resources. Okay? If your economy had not collapsed, if your black economy had been tackled, then yes, indeed you would have got additional resources, but not in this way. Then the government also says